The last message. The Velaran system had been a jewel of peace for 300 years. 7 planets orbited their golden sun in perfect harmony, each world contributing to what many called the most successful alliance in galactic history. The Velarans themselves were beings of crystalline beauty, their bodies shimmering with internal light that changed color with their emotions. They had been humanity's first true friends among the stars, sharing technology, culture, and most importantly, trust. Ambassador Lai Chen stood on the observation deck of the Terra Velaran Friendship Station, watching cargo ships drift between the two species' territories. The station floated at the exact midpoint between human and Velaran space, a symbol of their unbreakable bond. Chen had served here for 15 years, watching both civilizations grow stronger together. The Velarans had taught humanity how to harvest energy from quantum foam, while humans had shared their mastery of artificial intelligence and defensive technologies. That morning started like any other. Chen was reviewing trade agreements when his personal communicator buzzed with an emergency frequency he had never heard before. The holographic display flickered to life, showing High Chancellor Vilex, the leader of the Velaran Federation. But something was wrong. The Chancellor's crystalline form, usually a calm blue, blazed with angry red and fearful yellow patterns. Ambassador Chen. Vilex's melodic voice crackled with static. They have betrayed us. The Hegemony Collective. They attack without warning. Our outer colonies burn. Chen, you must warn Earth. The Hegemony seeks to destroy all who stand against their expansion. We thought them allies, but they were merely waiting. Our defense grid has fallen. They use weapons we have never seen, temporal disruptors that age our ships to dust in seconds. Tell Earth. Tell them we fought with honor. Tell them. The transmission cut to static. Chen stood frozen, his coffee mug slipping from his hand to shatter on the deck. Through the observation window, he could see flashes of light in the distance, where the Velaran border stations should be. His mind raced. The Hegemony Collective, a consortium of 5 aggressive species, had signed non-aggression pacts with everyone. They controlled the galactic core and had seemed content with their territory. Chen's hands moved automatically, opening emergency channels to Earth Command. Within seconds, his screen filled with the face of General Sarah Martinez, head of United Earth Defense. Her expression turned grim as Chen relayed the message. In the background, he could see her staff scrambling, pulling up tactical displays and sensor data from the Velaran border. Confirmed, Martinez said after a moment. We're detecting massive energy signatures consistent with hegemony dreadnoughts. The Velaran defense network is gone. Completely destroyed. Chen, evacuate the station immediately. All Earth vessels are ordered to fall back to the Soul Line. The Soul Line was humanity's ultimate defensive perimeter, a network of hidden weapons platforms, minefields, and fortress stations built after humanity's first devastating encounter with hostile aliens 2 centuries ago. No enemy had ever pushed humanity back to the Soul Line. Earth's High Council convened within the hour. Representatives from every human colony, moon base, and orbital city linked into the virtual chamber. The debate was fierce but brief. Some called for immediate negotiations, others for a strategic retreat. But when the final images from the Velaran worlds arrived, showing cities turned to glass and entire continents burning, the decision became clear. President Marcus Webb stood before the assembly, his voice carrying the weight of history. For 300 years, the Velarans stood with us. They were more than allies. They were family. When humanity was young among the stars, they protected us. When we stumbled, they helped us stand. Now they call for aid, and we will answer. But we will answer in a language the hegemony understands. The vote was unanimous. Earth would go to war. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, in bunkers that hadn't been opened since the Age of Silence, ancient machinery began to hum. Admiral Elena Torres descended into the classified depths of Installation Zero, her retinal scan and genetic markers verified at each checkpoint. She had trained for this moment her entire career, hoping it would never come. The elevator stopped at the lowest level, where a massive vault door bore a simple inscription: "When all else fails." Torres placed her palm on the scanner, speaking the authorization code passed down through generations of Earth's military leadership. The door groaned open, revealing rows upon rows of sleek, angular warships that seemed to absorb light itself. These were the Nightmare Fleet, Earth's last resort. Built during humanity's darkest hour, when the Skarn Empire had nearly wiped out human civilization, these ships incorporated technology that the galaxy had agreed to ban. Quantum weapons that could tear holes in space-time, nanoplug launchers that could consume entire fleets, singularity generators that could collapse stars. Earth had promised never to use them again. But promises meant nothing when family was murdered. Torres walked among the silent giants, her fingers trailing along their dark hulls. The ship's AI cores flickered to life at her touch, ancient minds awakening after centuries of sleep. Their names appeared on her tablet: Retribution, Nemesis, Extinction, Worldender, Oblivion, and at the heart of the fleet, the flagship Humanity's Wrath. As the ships powered up, their crews began arriving. These weren't ordinary naval personnel. They were the descendants of Earth's warrior bloodlines, trained from birth for this possibility. The Ghost Crews, humanity called them, because officially they didn't exist. No records, no families, no lives outside their purpose. They had been waiting in hidden facilities across the solar system, generation after generation, for the call that had finally come. Captain John Reaper stepped onto the bridge of humanity's wrath. His great-grandfather had commanded this same ship in the Skarn War. The captain's chair recognized his genetic pattern, displays coming alive with tactical data. Around him, his bridge crew took their stations with practiced efficiency. No words were needed. They all knew why they were here. Back on Earth, the population remained unaware of the preparations. Media outlets reported only that Earth was considering its response to the Velaran crisis. Diplomatic channels buzzed with activity as human ambassadors delivered carefully worded messages to neutral powers, warning them to stay clear of the conflict zone. Some species expressed surprise at humanity's measured response. The humans, they whispered, were being unusually quiet. Too quiet. The Hegemony Collective, drunk on their easy victory over the Velarans, barely noticed Earth's silence. Their supreme overlord, a being known only as the Harvester, dismissed his advisors' concerns. The humans are weak, he declared from his throne on the fortress world of Dominus Prime. They hide behind their treaties and their words. They will negotiate, as they always do. And when they do, we will add their worlds to our collection. But in the outer reaches of the Sol system, something stirred. Sensor stations reported strange readings, gravitational anomalies that appeared and vanished like ghosts. Merchant vessels spoke of shadows moving between the stars, of navigation systems failing and then suddenly working again. Meanwhile, Earth's conventional forces began what appeared to be a defensive deployment. The media praised the swift response as Earth's battle fleets formed up along the Sol line. Military analysts from other species commented on the textbook defensive positions. It all looked exactly like what would be expected from a civilization preparing to protect its home territory. None of them noticed the gaps in the formation. None of them questioned why Earth's deep space tracking stations had gone dark. None of them wondered why quantum communication relays throughout human space had suddenly switched to encrypted military channels that no one could decode. In the depths of space, the Nightmare Fleet moved. Their shadow drives bent space around them, making them invisible to every known form of detection. They didn't use standard hyperspace lanes or jump points. They carved their own paths through the universe, shortcuts that violated every law of physics the galaxy thought it understood. As Earth's conventional commanders gave speeches about defense and diplomacy, Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of humanity's wrath, studying the tactical display. The hegemony's fleet positions, their supply lines, their command structure, everything was mapped in perfect detail. The Velaran's sacrifice had not been in vain. In their final moments, they had transmitted invaluable intelligence about hegemony capabilities and weaknesses. Set course for the Nexus cluster, Taurus commanded. All ships maintain shadow protocols. The hegemony wants to see what happens when you kill humanity's friends. Let's show them. The fleet acknowledged with silence. 37 ships of impossible power slipped through the fabric of space itself, carrying humanity's answer to genocide. The galaxy had forgotten why humans had once been feared across 1,000 systems. They had forgotten the species that had crawled out of the gravity well of a death world, survived ice ages, plagues, and nuclear war just to reach the stars. They had forgotten that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its numbers, but its capacity for both love and vengeance. As the last Velaran cities burned and the hegemony celebrated their conquest, Earth's children of war glided through the darkness. No declarations were made. No warnings were sent. The time for words had passed. Now came the reckoning. In the command center of Installation Zero, President Webb watched the fleet's progress on secure monitors. The weight of his decision pressed down on him. Unleashing the Nightmare Fleet meant crossing a line humanity had drawn in its own blood. But as images of burning Velaran worlds played across the screens, he knew there had been no choice. "May God forgive us," he whispered. General Martinez, standing beside him, shook her head. "It's not God's forgiveness we need, sir. It's the galaxy's understanding. They need to learn what happens when you destroy those under humanity's protection." Far across the galactic arm, the hegemony's commanders started receiving strange reports. Patrol ships were vanishing. Communication relays went silent. Entire sensor networks simply ceased to exist. But each incident was isolated, spread across their vast territory, easy to dismiss as technical failures or pirate activity. They didn't realize the net was already closing. They didn't understand that every missing ship, every dark relay, every blind sensor was part of a carefully orchestrated plan. Earth wasn't just going to war. Earth was executing a surgical strike against an enemy that had forgotten the first rule of interstellar politics: never kill a human's family. As the Nightmare Fleet reached their staging points around the Nexus cluster, Captain Reaper stood before his assembled crew. His words were broadcast to every ship in the fleet, a tradition dating back to wet Navy warfare on ancient Earth. "They thought us weak. They thought us tamed. They forgot that we are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day, and we survived. They forgot that we are the species that split the atom before we cured the common cold. They forgot that we weaponized everything from sound waves to smallpox. But most importantly, they forgot that we remember our friends, and we avenge our family. Today we remind them. Today we are not diplomats or traders or explorers. Today we are what we were born to be, humanity's wrath made manifest. To your stations. The hunt begins." The crew roared their approval, the sound echoing through the ship. Similar scenes played out across the fleet. The quiet ones, the ghost crews who had lived their entire lives for this moment, finally had purpose. As the human calendar marked the 7th day since the Velaran attack, the Nightmare Fleet completed their deployment. In a few hours, the hegemony would learn why the galaxy had once whispered humanity's name in fear. They would learn why even the ancient Skarn Empire had chosen extinction over surrender to human vengeance. The stars watched in silence as humanity prepared to remind the universe of a simple truth. You can kill humans, you can destroy their worlds, you can burn their cities. But if you touch their friends, their family, those they have sworn to protect, then you face not just death, but obliteration so complete that future generations will speak your name only as a warning. The last message from Velaran Prime had asked Earth to remember them with honor. Earth would do more than remember. Earth would ensure that the galaxy never forgot. The first phase was complete. The pieces were in position. The Nightmare Fleet waited in the darkness between stars, their weapons powered, their crews ready. Humanity had been silent long enough. Now it was time to scream. When giants wake. The hegemony fortress world of Cronus Station floated like a metallic cancer in space, its surface bristling with weapons that had conquered 100 systems. Inside its command center, Supreme Overlord Harvester received the daily victory reports with satisfaction. The Velaran systems had been completely pacified, their resources already being stripped and processed. The galaxy's response had been predictably weak: formal protests, economic sanctions, empty threats. What of the humans? Harvester asked his intelligence chief, a spider-like arachnid whose compound eyes glittered with malice. Silent. Supreme One. Their fleets maintain defensive positions around their core worlds. Our analysis suggests they lack the will for offensive action. They speak of seeking diplomatic solutions through the Galactic Council. The creature's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among its kind. Harvester's own laugh was like grinding stone. Diplomatic solutions. How perfectly human. They talk while we take. Soon, they will have nothing left to negotiate with. But 8 light years away, hidden in a fold of twisted space-time that shouldn't have existed, Captain John Reaper studied his tactical display. Cronus Station appeared as a red tumor of light, surrounded by the green dots of hegemony fleet positions. His crew worked in perfect silence, their hands dancing over controls with practiced precision. Shadowfield holding steady, reported his operations officer. No detection from enemy sensors. Reaper nodded. The Shadow Drive was humanity's most closely guarded secret, a technology born from desperation during the Skarn War. It didn't just hide ships, it moved them through dimensions that other species couldn't even perceive. The power requirements were enormous, the side effects on human physiology disturbing. But for moments like this, it was perfect. Signal the fleet, Reaper commanded. Begin Phase 1. Across the Nexus cluster, 37 nightmares wearing ship's armor received the command. They had spent days mapping every hegemony position, every supply depot, every communication relay. Now they struck with surgical precision. The first sign of trouble came from the hegemony's early warning network around Cronus Station. Sensor platforms began failing in sequence, their last transmission showing nothing but empty space. The pattern was too regular to be coincidence, but investigation teams found only debris fields where the platforms should have been. Debris that showed no signs of weapons fire, as if the stations had simply aged 1,000,000 years in seconds. Within hours, the hegemony's entire outer perimeter had gone dark. Patrol ships sent to investigate never returned. Communication with frontier bases ceased mid-transmission. But still, there was no enemy to fight, no fleet to engage. Just silence spreading like a disease through their territory. On Cronus Station, Harvester's confidence began to crack. "Show me the human positions again," he demanded. The main display lit up with real-time intelligence. Earth's fleets remained exactly where they had been, maintaining their defensive formations around Sol and the core colonies. Every ship accounted for, every movement tracked. It made no sense. Perhaps rebels from the conquered territories, suggested his tactical advisor, or pirates taking advantage of the chaos. But then the first visual confirmation arrived. A data core ejected from a dying patrol ship, its final recording showing something impossible. A human vessel, but not like any in their databases. A thing of sharp angles and darkness that seemed to bend light around itself. The recording lasted only seconds before the patrol ship simply dissolved, its hull aging to dust in the span of heartbeats. "Impossible," Harvester breathed. "The humans don't have such technology." They were wrong. Humanity had possessed the technology for centuries. They had simply chosen not to use it, bound by treaties and their own conscience. But genocide had a way of freeing the conscience from such constraints. Admiral Torres watched the tactical display from the bridge of humanity's wrath. The Nightmare fleet had carved a perfect sphere of darkness around the Nexus cluster, cutting it off from the rest of hegemony space. No signals in or out. No ships could enter or leave. The cluster had become a pocket universe with new rules. Humanity's rules. "Phase 2, she ordered. The shadow fields dropped. For the first time in days, the Nightmare Fleet appeared on every sensor in the cluster. The hegemony's personnel, already rattled by the mysterious disappearances, now faced a sight from their species' collective nightmares. Ships that looked like they had been carved from the void itself, their hulls drinking in light, their weapons pods glowing with energies that made space itself recoil. On every hegemony frequency, a single message played in perfect universal standard. You destroyed our friends. Now we destroy you. This is humanity's answer. Harvester's command center erupted in chaos. Tactical displays showed human ships everywhere, around mining colonies, shipyards, military bases, and converging on Cronus Station itself. The numbers made no sense. These ships weren't in any database, their energy signatures unlike anything recorded. All forces, engage the intruders. Harvester roared. Destroy them. The hegemony fleet responded with trained precision. Hundreds of warships turned their weapons on the human vessels, filling space with energy beams, plasma bolts, and missile swarms. It should have been overwhelming firepower. But the human ships weren't where they appeared to be. The shadow drives created ghost images, false positions that drew fire while the real vessels struck from impossible angles. Hegemony ships found themselves firing at empty space, while their hulls disintegrated under weapons that aged metal to rust in milliseconds. The battle for Mining Platform 7 lasted exactly 90 seconds. A hegemony dreadnought, proud veteran of 50 campaigns, faced off against the human destroyer Extinction. The dreadnought fired everything it had, enough firepower to crack a small moon. Extinction's hull rippled like water, the shots passing through as if the ship existed in a different phase of reality. Then Extinction fired once, a single black beam that touched the dreadnought's hull. The massive warship aged 10 million years in an instant, its crew turning to dust, its reactor going cold, its hull crumbling like ancient parchment. Across the cluster, similar scenes played out. The hegemony fought with desperation, throwing every weapon, every tactic, every ship into the battle. But they were fighting an enemy that had spent 2 centuries perfecting the art of total war, an enemy that had turned every nightmare, every theoretical weapon, every forbidden technology into reality. On Cronus Station, Harvester watched his empire crumble. Reports flooded in, shipyards collapsing into quantum foam, military bases consumed by nanoplague, entire fleets aging to cosmic dust. The humans weren't just winning. They were erasing the hegemony's military infrastructure from existence. Evacuate the command staff, his advisors begged. We must retreat, regroup. But there was nowhere to run. The human fleet had woven a net of twisted space around the cluster. Ships that tried to enter hyperspace found themselves emerging back where they started, trapped in looping corridors of folded reality. The Nexus cluster had become a prison with walls made of physics humanity had rewritten. Captain Reaper brought humanity's wrath into position above Cronus Station. The fortress's weapons fired desperately, but the shots bent around the human flagship like light around a black hole. Reaper opened a channel to the station. Supreme Overlord Harvester, I am Captain John Reaper of the United Earth ship Humanity's Wrath. You stand accused of genocide against the Valoran people, our brothers among the stars. How do you plead? Harvester appeared on the screen, his chitinous form trembling with rage and fear. You have no authority here, human. The hegemony answers to no one. You're wrong, Reaper replied calmly. Today, you answer to us, to the families of every Valoran you murdered, to the children who watched their worlds burn, to the friends who trusted you with peace and received death in return. Today, you answer to humanity's oldest law, blood for blood. Wait, Harvester's voice cracked. We can negotiate. Resources, territory, technology. Name your price. Reaper's face showed no emotion. You misunderstand. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to deliver a message to the galaxy. The message is you. Humanity's wrath fired once. A sphere of perfect darkness engulfed Cronus Station, a quantum weapon that deleted matter from reality itself. Where the mighty fortress had been, only empty space remained. No debris, no energy signatures, nothing. As if Cronus Station had never existed at all. The battle was over. In 6 hours, the Nightmare Fleet had reduced the hegemony's military to scattered survivors hiding in the darkness. Their shipyards were gone, their weapons platforms erased, their proud fleet turned to drifting dust. But humanity wasn't finished. Phase 3 began with simultaneous strikes across hegemony space. The core worlds woke to find human ships in their skies, not attacking, but watching, waiting. On every communication channel, in every language of the 5 hegemony species, the same message played. People of the hegemony, your leaders chose genocide. They murdered our friends, the Velorans, who had harmed no one. Your military has been judged and found wanting. Your fleet is dust. Your fortresses are gone. But you, the citizens, the innocent, you have a choice. Surrender your leaders for trial. Accept the judgment of the Galactic Council. Choose peace or share your military's fate. You have one planetary rotation to decide. Across 100 worlds, panic turned to revolution. Citizens who had been fed propaganda about glorious conquest now faced the reality of their empire's crimes. When they looked up at the dark ships hanging in their skies like promises of death, they made the only rational choice. Within hours, hegemony officials were being dragged from their palaces. Military commanders found themselves arrested by their own troops. The spider-like Arachnon intelligence chief was delivered to a human ship by a mob of his own species, wrapped in the silk of shame. One by one, the architects of genocide were handed over to face justice. The trials were held on neutral ground, overseen by the Galactic Council, with humanity abstaining from judgment. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings of the hegemony planning the Veloran attack, communications showing their true intent to conquer and enslave. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. But it was the sentence that shocked the galaxy. Not execution, not imprisonment, but something worse. The convicted leaders were handed over to humanity's Department of Reality Enforcement. They would spend their remaining years in quantum stasis, experiencing the final moments of every Veloran who died in their attack. They would feel each death, experience each moment of fear and pain, over and over, until their minds finally broke. It was a punishment that made even hardened warriors shudder. In the aftermath, as reconstruction began, and new governments formed from the hegemony's ashes, Admiral Torres stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the Great Chamber, all waiting to hear humanity's intentions. The Nightmare Fleet will return to their vaults, Torres announced. The weapons that should never have been awakened will sleep again, but let this day be remembered. Let every species know that humanity chooses peace, seeks friendship, offers trust. But should any power, any force, any empire choose to harm those under our protection, know this: we will not hesitate, we will not negotiate, we will not forgive. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Velorans were our family. When you killed them, you reminded us of what we are capable of becoming. Pray you never remind us again. The fleet disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared, shadow drives carrying them back to their hidden vaults on Earth. The crews returned to their secret lives, waiting for a call they hoped would never come again. The galaxy watched Earth with new respect and old fear, understanding finally why humanity had sealed away such power. But on Earth, in a quiet ceremony attended only by families, President Webb unveiled a new monument, a crystal spire that captured and held light, designed by the last surviving Veloran artist. At its base, an inscription in both human and Veloran script. To our friends among the stars, your light shall never fade. Your memory shall never dim. Your sacrifice gave the galaxy peace. We remember, we honor, we protect. As years passed, the legend of humanity's wrath became a cautionary tale told across the galaxy. New alliances formed, built on respect rather than fear. Species learned to settle disputes through diplomacy, knowing the alternative. The mere rumor of human displeasure was enough to bring warring parties to the negotiation table. But humanity itself changed. The unleashing of the Nightmare Fleet had shown them their own darkness, their capacity for destruction on a scale that frightened even themselves. They threw themselves into peaceful pursuits with renewed vigor, becoming the galaxy's mediators, its healers, its teachers. They shared technology freely, helped young species reach the stars, and built bridges between old enemies. Yet in the deepest vaults beneath Earth's surface, the Nightmare Fleet waited, their Aes dreaming electric dreams of battles that might come, their crews training in secret, their weapons maintained against the day when darkness might rise again. A reminder that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their ships, but their willingness to become monsters to protect those they loved. The Velaran species was gone, but their legacy lived on. Every year, on the anniversary of their destruction, humans across the galaxy observed a moment of silence. Ships would power down, cities would grow quiet, and humanity would remember. Not just the friends they had lost, but the price of vengeance and the weight of power. In the end, the galaxy learned a simple truth. Humanity could be your greatest friend or your worst nightmare. The choice was yours. But if you chose to be their enemy, if you dared to harm those they called family, then you faced not just defeat but annihilation so complete that future generations would speak your name only as a warning. The hegemony had made their choice. They had chosen wrong. And in their extinction, the galaxy found peace. As Captain Reaper retired from service, his final log entry became required reading at every human military academy. We are the children of Earth, born from a world that tried to kill us daily. We survived by becoming everything. Builders and destroyers, healers and warriors, dreamers and nightmares. But our greatest evolution was learning when to be each. Today, we were nightmares because the galaxy needed us to be. Tomorrow, we return to building dreams. May we always have the wisdom to know the difference and the courage to act when the choice is clear.